Good evening, everyone. So, tell me, what day is it today? Wednesday, right, today is Wednesday. So, I don't know about you, but for me, every Wednesday is the same exact routine. I wake up at 6, I turn on the light, then I put my right foot down and my left foot down, and then I walk straight to the bathroom. Sometimes my walking style is not that straight, it's more like a zombie, you know, more like that. And then I get ready, I dress up, and at 6:52 sharp, I leave my house and I head off to take the staff bus, which is waiting outside my compound and drives me to my workplace. Then I arrive to my workplace and I go to the cafeteria and I queue for my first coffee of the day. And then finally, I walk very automatically to my office. So this is my routine for every Wednesday. But then, one Wednesday, I wake up, I turn on the lights, and there is no light. Electricity cuts. So then I put my left foot down instead of my right foot because I'm disturbed by the electricity cut, right? And I fall down and I need to injure myself because I'm not used to putting my left foot first instead of my right foot. And then I miss the staff bus because it took me more time to get ready, right? And I arrived late for work. And then I go to the cafeteria and no more coffee. End of the world. So, who never had one of those bad days? We all had, of course. And we hate them, don't we? We hate it when our routine is broken. And why is so? It's because we hate change. We are not used to change. In 2005, I made a decision which triggered the biggest change in my life. I moved from Paris to Shanghai. It's been 10 years now that I live in China. And whenever Chinese ask me, where are you from? And I said, France. The Chinese reaction usually is, why did you leave France for China? France is so beautiful. Right? And indeed, France is beautiful. I had a beautiful childhood in France. Let me ask you, how many of you has been in France? Raise your hands, let me see. How many? Not that many. Okay, France is beautiful. There's no question about it. But I wanted to come to China to go back to my roots. My ancestors were Chinese, Cantonese to be more precise. But my grandparents had to leave China in the 30s when Japanese invaded. So they were forced to leave their home country, they were forced to escape, they were forced to make a big change in order to survive. They chose to go to Cambodia and to start a new life over there. My parents were born in Cambodia and they made in Cambodia, so they became overseas Chinese, identify and watch out. And unfortunately, history decided that, again, my family would have to make a drastic change. So, in the 1970s, the civil war in Cambodia killed 2 million people, which was 1/4 of the population. My parents tried to escape the first time, but they failed. And in this first attempt to escape, they lost 14 relatives out of 19, including 2 of their own children. In the second attempt, they walked through their country for months until they reached the frontier and the refugee camps where I was born. In October 1980, my grandfather, my parents, 2 of my aunts, my brother and I, the baby, landed in Paris as refugees. My brother used to tell me, on that day when we landed in France, it was snowing, and he saw escalators, stairs moving on their own. Can you imagine? Shocking. It was a big change. Then it was my turn, 24 years later, to make the big move to come to Shanghai. I wanted to find myself in the big city, but it was a long and difficult quest. I changed jobs 12 times, and I moved apartments 20 times. So now I'm really familiar with Shanghai. If you get lost, you might give me a call, I could help. So, yes, I used to make drastic changes in my life, once in a while, just for, the thrill of starting anew. And of course, there are downsides to jumping from one environment to another, but I used to see it as a way to find fresh inspiration for my writing. Because indeed, the only thing that didn't change in my life was this need to write, the dream of becoming a writer. I would spend hours, evenings, weekends, trying to pull out those messages that I had and put them onto the paper. Until one day, that passion became an obsession and I decided to quit my job. So my sabbatical was all planned. I was about to make a dream come true. Only 1 week after I quit plan collapsed. I didn't get the bonus when I was promised, I was kicked out from my apartment, and my friends turned their back at me. So again, big change. I decided to quit because there was nothing left for me in Shanghai. I went on a trip, and on this trip, I bumped into a school, a martial arts school. Time is too short to tell you the whole story, but I can tell you that it started with me looking for a room for the night, and I ended up staying 1 year in that school. When I was training Tai Chi and Kung Fu, one of the things that I learned was the concept of Leang. So the symbol of Leang represents the universe, and the white and black shape represent the constant change that happens in the universe, the one you need to adjust to if you want to find balance and to live in harmony. 2 years ago, my first book, Embarquement pour la Chine, was published. So I officially became a published author. My dream came true. And I remember holding the book in my hands for the first time, seeing my name on the cover. I was ecstatic. But then, a few minutes later, my mood changed already. I was thinking, what's next? I couldn't wait to go back to work and start working on my new book. You know, people worry about change. They fear or they hate change. But change is the only real constant in life. Once you accept it, it becomes easier to deal with the struggles, and you start to see difficulties as opportunities. What I want to say tonight is, life is short. Do not worry about change. Worry that no day can be repeated. No day can be repeated. So my name is Leang, and I invite you to embrace change into your life. I am a writer, speaker, and coach, and if you would like to find more about what I do, welcome to check my website. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay, your last chance to ask questions. Are there any questions?
Hello, this is Nicholas.
Hi, what's your name?
Byron.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I would like to know, you are a friend
Yes.
and who are you writing for? Are you writing for friends, people in France, or friends, people in China, or the foreign person?
That's a really good question. So my first book was written in French. It's about the French who came to China. The period, everything before 1949. All my books have a very strong historical background because my own history, my own story, my family story is so deeply influenced by history that there's always a historical element in my books. But this book, I'm happy to say, is on its way to be translated into Chinese. So soon, hopefully, you will be able to find a copy. And the book that I'm preparing now is, I write it in English. It will be for everyone. It will be about my adventure learning Tai Chi. And then I have other projects ongoing. It's funny, when I write a book, I feel like the story is coming to me, and then I find the audience, rather than thinking about the audience and then writing the book. So this is my creative process.
I'm PechaKucha for you. First one is during the changes in your daily life, how do you keep a balance? Like say you balance with the family, with your career, as well as yourself, your soul. And the second question is what motivates you most upon for you to make a decision when facing the changes, and which turns out to bring about the fruitful outcomes? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. First question. I haven't been always balanced, I must say. It's a long process, you have to train, I was lucky that I found good guidance on my way to learning how to be balanced. I would say it helped me. I used to be more extreme. In my personality, I'm more of an extreme person. But I would say also embrace whatever you feel. for somebody else. So your friends, the advice that they give you is for your own good, but it's more, something that you do for themselves. So listen to your intuition.
Thank you for your speech. I want to ask, you said your ancestors, your grandpa's homeland is Guangdong province, right? Have you ever came back and visited your grandpa's homeland? Also, if yes, how you feeling?
I've been to Guangdong province, but it was more for business trips. Unfortunately, my parents lost almost all their relatives, so there's nothing left from their family. But we went back together to Cambodia, and it was a very emotional trip. I'm actually writing a book about my parents' history. It was very emotional. It was interesting to see how going back to the country where they grew up, I expected, a lot of tears, a lot of sadness because of all the things they had to go through. But instead of that, my parents were like going back to childhood, going back to what they were familiar with. So it was a mixed feeling. And if you happen to have traveled to Cambodia, maybe you have felt this twofold ambience, people being very happy, smiling, beautiful country, and very lively. But on the other hand, you feel that there's these big wounds, that something is broken, and unfortunately, I think the country will not recover from this civil war.
Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And I have one question, because there's a rising phenomenon in China that so many young people want to quit their job because they feel a little bit boring, or the job is a little bit same, and they want to go outside and go around the world and traveling around the world just with no salary and nothing, just go outside, just to look around the world. Yes, and I want to ask you that what's your suggestions or advices for those young people wanting to look to her about the world?
Yes. So as you might have understood, my parents come from Chinese background, and they are very much traditional, conventional Chinese parents, which means that they didn't encourage me to change jobs so many times, to move around, to travel, to spend 1 year doing nothing but learning Tai Chi. So it was tough. It was difficult because my parents were not supporting me. They were not encouraging my choices. They wanted me to have a stable job, to have a family, to be very stable. Because of what they do themselves, they